going back to 2008, the Great Recession, right? I bought this house in 2009. The world was coming to an end. You remember, Chris,
Oh, it was
everyone.
bad. I was a financial
Ah,
advisor at a high level. It was definitely coming to an end.
it was bad. Everyone thought the world was on fire. Main Street felt it. I felt it, man. I literally took my mortgage broker's license and I put it in the garbage can. It winded up in my home, in my garage, in the garbage can. That's how much it was worth. It's, with the regulations, you know what they did with regulations and all of that. Basically put the small guy out of business. That's a whole other topic. But anyways, where I had my office at the time, this is another real estate investor that owns a bunch of assets in the area. Uh, this gentleman owned a hotel and he owned this office building. So we went 2008. I said, Barth, I got to move. I can't stay here. I can't handle it. I lost a bunch of loan officers. I went back to where I started, to a smaller suite. And I couldn't even pay that, man. That's how tough it got. And I signed a year lease with him. And it was a small office, man. I can't remember. It was like $400 or $500 a month. It was like a little room, Chris. And I couldn't even pay that, man. That's how bad it got. It was bad out there. If you were around, you remember, Chris, but if your listeners that were around, no, it was tough out there. And I remember going to this man and I said, listen, Barth, I'm sorry, man. I just can't do it. Like, I really can't. This is what's happening in the world. Here's your keys, but I'm giving you my word. I gave the man my word. I said, listen, Barth, I'm giving you my word that I'm going to come back and I'm going to make good. I'm going to honor my lease, what I owe you. And we left on good terms. He shook my hands. He was like, okay, Martin, I get it. Times are tough. And about 6 months later, I show up at his hotel with a check. And I asked his front desk people, for Barth. And he comes out and he sees me and he's in shock. I give him this check and I'm like, man, here's this check. I told you that I was going to come back with this thing. Here it is. And he looked at me like I had two heads. He was like, heads. He said, you know what, Martin, most men would have just said, okay, it's whatever. I said, no, Barth, I told you I was going to make right on this. Here it is, man. And that man told me, he said, Martin, thank you. I honor the fact that you kept your word. He said, if you ever need anything, if you ever need to do business in this town, well, I live in a small town. So, most small towns have their little good old boy network. And he was part of that network. And he says, if you ever need anything in this town or you need to do any business, any future business, come to me. And I'll tell you how that deed of keeping your word paid forward. Last year, I met a gentleman that was raising capital for a deal. And one of my friends introduced me to another guy. So this guy, he comes into my office and he's like, yeah, I have, whatever, $100,000 he wanted to invest. And we had spent some time together. He had been to one of my events. He was really vetting me. I mean, he came to one of my real estate investors meetups. He came to my office. He at one of my events was talking to my wife, just kind of vetting us. And one day he's in my office and he's like, he goes to this synagogue, local synagogue. I said, oh, so this guy, that guy. This particular guy was one of them. He goes, yeah, we're good friends. I said, if you really want to know anything about me, just talk to that guy. If you really want to know, who we are and our level of integrity. And he came back and he said, that gentleman had nothing but stellar things to say about you. Because of that act that I kept my word, got me $100,000